Campbell, Facebook, Apple, y'all pledged $50 billion to, quote, be a force for social change and fight injustice. $50 billion is a lot of money. How is... Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Haas, you're with Johnson & Johnson, is that right?
Yes, sir.
How is that stakeholder capitalism working out for you?
How is it working for Johnson & Johnson? It's one of the greatest honors of my life.
Okay. I see where you, Johnson & Johnson, has joined with a number of other good American companies, J.P. Morgan. He's not a company, Mr. Colin Kaepernick, on his issue of police brutality. Procter & Gamble today.
Sir, I'm not aware of the particular commitment you're referencing, but I could
It's
say
right here on the internet.
dispositively.
It's got to be right.
I could say dispositively that the consistency is, in the end, to ensure that each and every act that the company takes is consistent with our credo. Okay. And our credo puts the public and our patients first.
Right. Let me ask the professor a few basic questions, because I'm still learning about this issue. Johnson & Johnson took it, before I do, I forgot to ask you one question. How many talc cases have you tried to verdict?
There have been 42 cases that have gone to verdict. Of those, we have prevailed in 32.
Okay, so you lost 10.
Yes.
Okay, and what were the total damages in the 10 that you lost?
The damages ranged dramatically.
Just give me a total.
I don't know the total. I can give you approximately. The highest one was in the billions.
Okay. All right, Professor. I don't want to just pick on Johnson & Johnson, but they're the one here. Let me pick on Georgia Pacific, okay? I don't want to pick on anybody. I'm learning on this issue, but let's call them Corporation A gets sued in with respect to mass torts. They spin off the liabilities to a shell corporation, and that shell corporation files Chapter 11 bankruptcy, right?
Sure.
Is that legal under the bankruptcy code?
Is that legal? The code does not restrict that necessarily. Courts have found that there are a variety of bases to reject that sort of action. So courts have been pretty active in this space. I should probably present White House left.
What's the consensus? I mean, some bankruptcy judges say this is a legitimate use of the bankruptcy code, I presume. Other bankruptcy judges say, no, it's not, and it's dismissed. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. I think that there's a nuance here, if you don't mind, I can flesh it out a little bit.
What's the national consensus on this?
I think the national consensus is that this is a proper action under state law, but to the extent there is some sort of impropriety, bankruptcy court judges are very well positioned to police that, as we've seen in the LTL case. So it's not that Senator Whitehouse pointed out I was supporting Texas two-step. I'm not supporting Texas two-step. I'm merely providing that to the extent there is malfeasance, it can be addressed.
This is an abuse of the code, right?
Exactly.
And
courts can address that.
How many have done that?
Well, the most prominent one is LTL. So in the Third Circuit now, there's a very rigorous
Is there a
test.
split among the circuits?
There is. So the Fourth Circuit, and we were talking about forum shopping earlier, that would encourage forum shopping. Absolutely.
Okay. Is there a case before the Supreme Court to resolve this?
No.
I bet there's one coming. I mean, and what are you asking us to do today? Let me start with Mr. Haas again. What are you asking us to do today?
The ask from our perspective to Congress would be to make uniform that very issue you just identified. What is the standard with respect to dismissing a case? Now, there's a distinction between the propriety of a Texas two-step, let's call that. It's a divisional merger statute, and the question of what is a standard that you apply when you dismiss a case. Our case was not dismissed because of anything to do with the Texas two-step. Nobody challenged the Texas two-step in our case. In fact,
Mr. Haas, you just had a golden opportunity to answer my question. Let me ask you, Mr. Parikh, and you didn't do it. Professor, tell me what you think we should do today. What you think Congress would do.
I think there are very large issues here. I think, as I mentioned before, 524G needs to be amended to capture all mass tort cases. Once that's done, you can have uniformity in process and procedure with all these cases. Some involve asbestos, some don't. The code can be revised to provide clarity on whether third-party releases can be part of a plan. I think that'd be very helpful. And, of course, the future claimants representative. If that could be modified, have some more integrity in that selection process, those pieces together, I think, would really improve the process.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kennedy asked a good question. We tried to follow through on it as to just what were the verdicts or the settlements in these cases. Some of it is hard to come by very quickly, but there was one case in Missouri that was $4.69 million for a group of 20 claimants, reduced on appeal to $2 billion, to give you a range here. But remember the offer from Johnson & Johnson through LTL was for $8.9 billion for 60,000 claimants. Put that in perspective. Next up, I believe, is Senator Hirono.
When Senator John Kennedy looked directly at the Johnson & Johnson lawyer and asked, "How is that stakeholder capitalism working out for you?" That was not a throwaway line. That was the moment the mask was ripped. That was the moment the hearing stopped being procedural and became existential. Because the moral stakes became explicit. Because the collision between corporate virtue branding and actual accountability suddenly stood naked in front of the American people. Kennedy forced the contradiction into the record. He forced the hypocrisy into daylight. He forced the defense lawyer of one of the most powerful multinational pharmaceutical giants in the world to answer, in public, whether the moral marketing, the $50 billion pledges, the social justice proxy messaging was real, or was strategic camouflage to cover a far more brutal truth, that they would still use bankruptcy loopholes, Texas two-step constructs, and shell spinoffs to isolate harm and protect the core corporate mothership from verdicts that would annihilate ordinary humans if the numbers were reversed. He forced the contradiction into moral geometry, and in response, the lawyer froze. He said he wasn't aware of that $50 billion pledge. He said he wasn't sure about the commitments. He said he could only speak positively about credo language. But that moment, that specific moment, is the exact center of the modern American corporate political dilemma. Because every single voter in this country knows exactly what they heard. They were watching the difference between language and liability, between PR and power, between speech and consequence. The hearing then moved directly into the darkest structural reality. Johnson & Johnson lost 10 talc cases, and those 10 had verdicts in the billions. There are 60,000 claimants, 60,000 families, 60,000 human lives. A Missouri case for a group of 20 was $4.69 million, then reduced to $2 billion. And the J&J offer through LTL is $8.9 billion total for all 60,000. The math speaks the indictment louder than any senator can. This is the moral asymmetry. This is the power asymmetry. This is the modern structure of mass tort shielding. The professor was forced to admit the truth. Companies can spin liabilities into a shell corporation. That shell can file bankruptcy. Some bankruptcy judges will allow it. Some will not. And corporations pick forums where they think they can win. The Third Circuit split exists. The Fourth Circuit exists. Forum shopping is real. This is not conspiracy theory. This is literal tactical legal engineering. This is how multinational corporations use the map of America as a battlefield of venues. And Kennedy was not guessing. He said it straight. I bet there's one coming, meaning the Supreme Court case. He knew exactly where this is headed. He knew the system is unsustainable. And he knew that the American legal architecture is forcing a reckoning. Because this is not complicated philosophically. It is only complicated legally. The corporate structure is using bankruptcy as a shield for liability chosen by business design, while simultaneously signaling public moral posture on social justice topics for reputational benefit. That is what the moment revealed. That is the pure, unfiltered moral contradiction. This is why this moment matters more than casual politics. This is not left, right. This is not culture war. This is structural power versus structural accountability. This is $50 billion pledged for being a force for social change. But when the bill comes due in the real world, when the damages become measurable in illness and death and verdicts, the corporate legal architecture attempts to isolate the damage into a disposable liability vehicle. Virtue signaling for social benefit, prophylactic bankruptcy for material damage. That is not stakeholder capitalism. That is moral arbitrage. That is reputational laundering. That is the American crisis. And this is why this hearing matters. Because this is where Congress actually is forced to face the reality that our code is being gamed in broad daylight. America saw it. America heard it. America now knows. We are watching a systemic legal infrastructure that allows powerful actors to minimize consequence, to collapse human suffering into spreadsheets, and to then claim a credo of public interest while limiting payout exposure to the lowest possible number. The professor said Congress could fix this. He literally handed them the architecture, amend 524G, expand uniformity on mass torts, clarify third-party releases, reinforce future claims representation integrity. Congress can do this instantly if Congress chooses to act. The question is not capability. The only question is will. The only question is whether the moral weight of that moment, Kennedy staring at the lawyer, penetrates beyond the hearing room, whether the American people will let this be ignored, or whether they will force this to be remembered, because that was the real stakes today, whether power can still be held to account in America, whether truth can still pierce corporate armor, whether moral language must match moral consequence. That is the line that was drawn. That is the line this channel exists to expose. We are not here to tell you what to think. We are here to force the questions that those in power do not want asked. We are here to turn hearings into memory, not noise, into narrative, not fragments, into moral record, not forgotten procedural ledger entries. The American Republic cannot survive if the powerful are allowed to outsource consequence, while the powerless absorb cost. That is the immutable moral law. That is the last guardrail. And that is the choice now sitting in the open. The choice is whether this country still believes in justice that is evenly applied, or whether justice is now merely a function of capital structure and venue selection. If this moment mattered to you, if you believe hearings like this need to be seen, remembered, decoded, and morally archived so the nation never forgets, subscribe to Liberty Congress of USA.